Hi, guys. I just wanted to talk real quick about the precedents Jackson set in a little more detail because he very much changed the face of politics and how politics work in the United States. Um, One of the first and biggest things he did that continues to this day is his presidential campaign focused on his opponent's characteristics rather than policies. Jackson was one of the first to implement personal attacks in a ploy known as mudslinging. We still see that today. You can watch almost any ad and you'll see, well, yeah, you'll see mudslinging, people attacking their opponents rather than the policies. Jackson was one of the first to do that. Along with that, he was one of the first to openly campaign, to go out to meet voters, to talk to voters, and tell them why they should vote for him. Other presidents hadn't done that. They'd kind of sat back and let their underlings go out and campaign, but Jackson himself went out and campaigned. He gave the executive branch a lot more power. We'll look at that a little more in a minute when we look at what he did for, well, not for, what he did with Native Americans. He ignored Supreme Court rulings. He single-handedly shut down the bank. He did a lot of things that weren't necessarily constitutional, but he got away with it. And so, yeah, that's another big thing he did. Now, probably the most important thing he did when you talk about or when you hear the words Jacksonian democracy, it means ordinary men are voting and women are getting involved in politics. They came to the inauguration and trashed the White House, right? And that's a really good example of what Jackson's president was like. It was seen as a president for the everyday common man. Presidents before this had come from very wealthy landowning families. Jackson was the first president to basically come from nothing, be very, very poor, work his way up through the military, and then get elected president. He was the first to know what the average everyday person's life was like because he had lived it. And so when we look at how America's government shifted focus from rich landowning politicians to everyday people being able to get involved and run for office, Jackson is super important with that. And finally, one thing he implemented that is still around today is the spoils system, or the idea that can fire the old president's staff and hire his friends. It's basically what the spoils system is. So if someone's more qualified but not loyal to me, if I'm running for president, I get elected president. If somebody's more qualified but not loyal, I'm going to fire them and hire the person who might be less qualified for whatever particular job, but is loyal to me. And Jackson started that. Before this, there'd been people working in government had basically been there for years and years and years. But Jackson, when he got elected, he fired a bunch of them and gave his friends and people who had supported him positions of power. And this is known as the spoils system. And we're going to move on in the PowerPoint, or in the Nearpod here, excuse me, and talk about the Native American policies next.